Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope you're excited for some top level beyond all reason, because today we're going to be starting the coverage of the recent 6v6 tournament that just wrapped up here, covering some of these best of threes played by some of the very best players currently in the game as they try to fend for their lives against the randomized settings that are chosen for each and every one of these matches. It's going to be a blast. I'll flash real quick up on the screen. Right over here on the left-hand side, I'll put the, left and right-hand side, I'll put the modifiers for this particular match, but I'll explain them quite quickly here. One of them, the map modifier, to explain the rules for this tournament, for anybody who didn't catch it live over on the Beyond All Reason official Twitch channel. The way this works is there's a map modifier for each and every map that they play, and then there's also a game modifier, quote-unquote. Today's map modifier is going to be no water, as you might already see on Emakia main. E main Makia had a little backwards there, backwards there. And the other one, which keen viewers might have noticed, is that unbalanced commanders is enabled. Unbalanced commanders definitely changes the way that this game is played. Essentially, what you want to do is take your commander to the front lines and get it leveling as quickly as possible. Typically, whoever so manages to level up their commander first and get the highest level commander, usually a Cortex commander, but I've seen it done with Armada as well, typically ends up being the one that manages to win the game in many, many ways. This is going to be a fun one. This is the best of three series in case I haven't mentioned already. So this is just game number one between these pros. Our blue team leader, who I've been focusing on here, representing blue in the Cortex bot lab here, gonna be Ragna, already with a Bronze Star commander. One of the fun things you can do with these unbalanced commanders is you can go for res bots right off the gate. Get a couple of those res bots out. You can also go for decoy commanders, which is pretty funny. But yeah, you can go for those res bots right out the gate, which means that you essentially don't need to build your bot lab first, which is really weird. It's one of those things that you can, well, unless you play with unbalanced commanders, you're not going to know about it. But if you do, then, for instance, maybe you've played in the Brightworks random challenges, the random lobbies that we do, Tuesdays and Saturdays, in case you're interested in joining in on that. You can, you can really start to do some creative strategies with these unbalanced commanders. Not to mention that these level up, of course, and so eventually you're going to be able to build better and better defenses. You're going to be able to build higher and higher tier units. So it's really important to get these commanders out on the front line and, building up their level as quickly as possible here. This is also a 6 versus 6 tournament, as you can see. Where's our red team leader? C-tier Seagull, going to be representing the red team as the Cortex commander down here in the southeastern side. Want to just introduce our team leaders here before I get any more carried away. Going to be representing the red team here, and as a Cortex commander as well. So interesting that we also see Nazan going into a bot lab before the air lab here, almost with 2 chevrons to the name here. This is really going to come down to who manages to get the most levels on their commander, I do believe. Yeah, whichever team manages to get the highest level commander, usually you can use that to spiral, and you just use the commander to win the game. Caliburn narrowly avoiding a couple of these grunts over here, or maybe it's the other way around, I suppose, with unbalanced commanders on. These grunts narrowly avoiding the commander. So another resource that you have to manage, right, is your leveling of the enemy's commanders. So you don't want to get into fights with the enemy's commanders, otherwise they're going to start leveling up a whole lot quicker. Things are going to not look very good. Nice little engagement right there out of Damus. And as well, these grunts over here are going to be mopped up, I do believe, by the reinforcing forces of Caliburn. Those tan grunts going to blast down the teal ones, and that will be all she wrote. Big force of orange grunts trying to push through over here. So much Cortex on the field today. Everyone and their mother has decided to go for Cortex. We see grunts all the way across the front lines here for the entire blue team. Yep, everybody Cortex all the way here. Looks like these smaller games, everyone has decided Cortex is the future. That being said, the Cortex unbalanced commander is also really, really good. The Cortex commander, when it's unbalanced, it levels up, and when it levels up, it gets range. It gets range and damage, so it becomes this walking powerhouse. Much like the mitochondria minus the walking. The Armada commander, however, gains speed. So it's not necessarily the most, not always the most useful thing in the world. Now the commanders also gain more resources as they level up as well, and so I really like to see this here. Master Bell moving the commander forward. Desperately needs to get this commander stuck in a fight so that he can use that level up. Oh, to his advantage. LSR killing a bunch of these grunts with that leveled commander right here. One strategy that works particularly well, not that this is really relevant in most you know, ladder games per se. But one strategy that works really well is to take a bunch of res bots, slap them on the back end of your commander, and then get that commander fighting other commanders here. You can imagine if two commanders are evenly trading, then the one that has the res bots behind it are going to be, well, it's going to survive a little bit longer here. Yeah, I think LSR wants to get in a fight here with Master Bell. You can see just how quick these commanders level up. Oh, LSR has won this fight by leveling up quicker. Yep. And down goes Master Bell. Oh, it's actually a commander trade. Wow, okay. That was really, really important that that commander trade happened right there for the red team, because if that commander in green managed to stay up and running right there, it would have been a nightmare for the red team to deal with here. Luckily, both of those commanders went down. Oh, Jazzcash getting in a little bit of a fight here too. Gotta be so careful. Oh, Jazzcash jumped on by the grunts though. Yep, Jazzcash gonna go down, and Seagull manages to walk away with all of that experience. Nicely done. Now this commander needs to go heal up. You gotta build those res bots. Res bots are critical when you're going for these unbalanced commanders. You hit V and then R in order to build those grave robbers, and you can build them out of your commander itself to repair itself back up here. You do that and you're gonna be in a wonderful position. Ragnar here building a forward bot lab, assisted by LSR right here. This is going to be tricky to beat. This commander right here is going to be the crux of the victory for the red team, or at the very least, I believe that if they want to push for victory, this is going to be the commander that they're going to have to do it with. Because, in fact, once those commanders start getting high enough level, they can start to challenge other commanders, right? Outrange those other commanders. And indeed, that's what we see Seagull doing right now. Yeah, going to resurrect the commander instead of reclaiming it. Not a bad idea. Randy exfiltrating a commander all the way to the left-hand side of the map here, where we do see a massive run-by of grunts, has taken out the entire base right now for Trash Panda. That three-star commander has been subverted, and those grunts have decided to run into the backline, punching the commander in the wallet rather than punching it in the face. Oh, and the fighters managed to snipe another commander out of the sky right there. That's a very efficient way to take out one of these extremely powerful commanders. Nicely done by Pro Randy. Or rather by the Air Forces here of Nizah, taking out Pro Randy's commander in that transport. That hurts a lot. T2 is now coming out of a lab in the back from Ragnar here, using as much metal that was reclaimed off the front lines here to try and build a force. Seagull is still not healed up here. Now this commander is extremely powerful, but it can't overstay its welcome here. T2 is still going to be able to deal with it, at least for the time being. It needs about 1 or 2 more levels before it can start dealing with T2. But Caliburn is now able to snipe these LLTs with no damage on the commander, meaning that the power leveling here is going to be extremely quickly climbing the ranks. And I do believe with 2 commanders hitting level 3 very quickly here for the red team, it's going to be extremely difficult for the blue team to hold. Damus forced to retreat the commander over here. There we go. Master Bell being revived right now. It's a leveling commander, so it has to be a little bit careful here. Caliburn setting up some defenses. Yeah, build more of those res bots. More res bots is definitely the way to go here. The commander is the powerhouse of this cell, and you want to res it and repair it as quickly as possible here. LSR is level 3 too, so going to be able to stave off the aggression right now from all these T1 grunts. We need to put this commander in the front though. We really need the green commander up front, doing as much damage to these units as possible, making sure that it's constantly leveling up here. That being said though, Sheldon's doing a great job of besieging everything over there. Oh, gotta be careful flying these commanders around. Once the commanders get high enough level, they can start to fire away at long enough range that they can hit the transports too out of the sky, and you gotta be real careful about that. Ragnar at level 3 now going to be able to flash down LLTs with no damage. Well, I suppose 1% of damage. Trash Panda and Caliburn engaging in a fisticuffs. Oh, Trash Panda has the leveling advantage though. Yep. Going to retreat off the line here. Caliburn, however, has that res bot to patch that commander back up. This is getting tense. Usually Umba Commanders is a steamroll, but it's impressive that the blue team has managed to actually repel the forces here. Seagull has been forced off the line. And you can see now with Silver Bar Commander, I'll show you over here closer to the action, you can see that they can start to build these T2 defenses. We can build the, or well, I guess they're T1, but you can build the sort of constructor tier of T1 defenses. You can build the agitators, you can build the twin guards, you can build any of those constructor level defenses. Ooh, Damus in a lot of trouble here. Yeah, Damus actually coming under fire. 27% left on that commander. Radney getting a nice little engagement on a bunch of those grunts here. Trash Panda going to mop up the rest of them. More and more levels. The commanders also radiate healing energy. They radiate good vibrations. Capable of healing all the structures and units around them, so really tanky units tend to work extremely well with these unbalanced commanders. If you're curious, by the way, where unbalanced commanders is meant for, typically it's meant as an AI battle sort of a thing. So you'll see them with, for instance, the scavengers or the raptors, any of those where it's just player versus AI. Typically, right? But this is the crazy tournament. This is the meme tournament. And every single match will have some sort of a modifier, some sort of set of modifiers, making it very tricky to play normally. You're gonna have to improvise, adapt, overcome. I believe that's their slogan they went with, and I think that's probably a perfect slogan for the occasion. Master Bell needs desperately to engage with some sort of army here and try and get some sort of trade. Try and level this commander up as much as possible. That's another thing that changes with the unbalanced commanders. The D-gun is reworked, so it has a little bit of a cooldown on it. That is only until you get to a certain level. Now, Ragna could push forward here and try and kill Damus. That would be a really huge move if he managed to actually snipe the kill on Damus's commander right now. Rattlesnake is up here, and it's going to start firing away at that commander. However, that commander can always just start firing away back at the Rattlesnake. Sharpshooter's not bad, but only when they hit their shots. Or good only when they hit their shots, I should say. Yeah, there goes the commander, getting the kill on that Rattlesnake over there. So dangerous. Sharpshooters may be one of the only efficient ways to take out these commanders if you can get them within range. And that's a big if, especially as we're getting to this third tier of commander, right, where we see the silver bars coming out here. Oh, Ragna is brought down, however, over in the center of the map, and that is a huge hit. That commander was a silver bar commander, and so that's going to soften up this side a little bit here. Damus might be able to start thinking about getting aggressive against Trash Panda. There's all of these constructors over here that he can retreat back to for healing, should it be necessary. Trash Panda getting a nice connection on these grunts, though. It becomes a game of vision, actually. You need vision so that your Cortex commanders can fire out as far as they, can fire. Right-hand side of the map. Tons of aggression from all these Sheldon that have been built up here. White Mage trying desperately to defend for this side, using the commander in the front lines. Got to be careful, though. Those Sheldon can still outrange that commander. Got to be very, very careful. Grunts jumping on top of the geothermal. Yeah, they want it. Don't think it's going to happen here. We'll get eaten apart. Nicely done. Nice crisis management over there. Caliburn now pumping out a whole bunch of T1 spam. You can actually produce... Oh, never mind. I thought you could produce units out of the unbalanced commanders. Looks like that's not the case. More and more Sheldon coming up and online here for Ragna, flowing out into the center of the map here. One of the only effective ways currently of dealing with those commanders alongside the sharpshooters. Master Bell and Nazah trying to get an engagement here. And the Purple Forces trying to avoid giving them that engagement. Anything to prevent the commanders from gaining XP is going to be really, really impactful here. Caliburn now going into a couple of advanced solar panels, trying to scale that economy much more rapidly. You can see all of the metal currently being shared around the team. Caliburn has tons and tons of it in the bank account. It's because these commanders start to build more and more economy as time goes on. You can also see, do we have an Armada commander? I thought we had an Armada commander somewhere around here. There it is, yeah, the Armada commander. You can see it moving a little quicker now. Yep, starting to waddle around a little bit faster. Maybe, well, not yet fast enough to deal with those Sheldon, but getting to that speed does feel like. The Armada Commander also starts to produce energy and resources, same as the Cortex Commander, and so once it starts to produce enough energy, you can of course use the energy it produces to keep it permanently cloaked, making it a very, very formidable enemy on the battlefield. Trash Panda now up to level 2. All it takes is one good engagement with an enemy commander and maybe just a couple of res bots in order to make that commander extremely, extremely dangerous. You can see the Cortex commander slow down, whereas the Armada commander speed up. Damus pushing forward. Oh, those sharpshooters getting a nice connection right there. Starting to damage up that commander, but we do have the res bots here to try and help. Not bad. Grunts now pumped out in mass, trying desperately to make some sort of an engagement happen here against these sharpshooters. Yeah, I mean, the Grunts are definitely wasting all those shots, which is nice. Left-hand side is crumbling right now for the blue team, whereas the right-hand side is pushing as far forward as possible. Masterbell in a lot of trouble here. 0% left on that commander. Going to be forced off the front lines. Oh, too close to that geothermal, though. Oh, way too close to that geothermal, and that commander goes down to the Sheldon, bombarding that geothermal out in the center of the map right there. Excellent snipe for the blue team. The green player using those Sheldon to devastating effect. The base over here has been ravaged by Caliburn and Demas, pushing forward with those sharpshooters for a little bit of accessory damage. Not really needed, though, as the commanders are now making a bold push towards the finish line. Caliburn marching up to the end here, trying to, well, finish out this left-hand side of this game. It's a matter of who swings first. Both teams losing their respective sides over here, although I must say White Mage is holding on much tighter to their side of the map than the northern side here of the blue team. Caliburn now at level 2 as well. Trash Panda in a desperate situation. Sharpshooters also whittling off fractions of the commander's HP there. Sorry, I went full wind mode. I was gonna say sections and fractions at the same time, and we ended up with a tornado. All the way on this side of the map, we see a huge grunt collision. Sheldon happy to rain down fire on that, though. And we'll see that T1 trash melting into cinders here. Just like this T1 laboratory of Nazah, who is now going to be forced to retreat off this line. He does have a silver bar Armada commander, and you can see the Armada commander, their D-gun is replaced with an EMP gun. So what I'd love to see is this commander cloaking and marching forward and then trying to get a killer D-gun on some of these forces. Snag a D-gun on any of these, and then you're going to move in and get the kill. Try and power level that commander. Turns it into a MOBA, basically, but this is really where the pain is at. No power to stop this push right now. We have the sharpshooters and the commanders for anti-spam protection. You can see any of those grunts that move forward just getting blasted apart by those commander lasers. And I just don't know if there's anything that the blue team can do to repel this force right now. Caliburn nicely done, backing off here when he smelled that there was a force pushing in this direction. Commander flicking back and forth. Practicing his aim labs, flicking back and forth between those. But at the end of the day, I think it was just more experience under the belt here of that tan commander. Yeah, Trash Panda is having a bit of an issue. Apparently eating all the energy by keeping this commander cloaked and moving. It's not really like there's much of a choice, and I do believe that commander is going to go down to the sharpshooters right there, meaning that Demas is free to step forward and ravage the base down south here. This is not looking good. Big old push right through the middle of the map right now, trying desperately to use these Sheldon to take out the base of the hot pink player over here. A little bit of a base trade scenario. Is moving that Armada commander forward, trying to get it right into the heart of all of this action, I do believe. Oh. I think there was a commander explosion over here. We need to set this on fire. Yep, there we go. Oh, no. Come on now. Fire away. Well, Nazah not going to fire. There we go. Finally switching to fire mode. But it looks like the red team has already crumbled the rest of the blue. I really don't think there was much of a way to stop this with those OP commanders in the background. It's not long before they sweep all the way across the northern side of this map, wiping out the blue. What an epic game number 1. And let's hop into game number 2. Match number 2, gonna be played on Whitefire Remake. The Goopsters team with 1 point on the board in this best of 3 series. If they win this one, it means that they'll be moving on to the next round. Let's see if the blue team can manage to hold out in this next match. Today's modifiers. For the map modifier, we rolled, drum roll please, no modifier. A little bit anticlimactic, I feel like. I'm not sure why no modifier was included in the modifiers challenge, but I suppose it's a fair base to launch off of, maybe. The unit modifier, however, the game modifier was experimental units. Now, it's a little early in this match for me to show you the experimental units, but what it basically means is that any unit that is available in the game is enabled. So I'm guessing that means T2 expanded naval, not that we'll see that at all. The test units are probably enabled, as well as all of the quote-unquote fun units, which you can find in the advanced options experimental units tab. Should be some good fun to see what comes out here. The Armada, one of the things about the Armada experimental units that I really love is the Zapper, which is this little RC car with an EMP beam on the front of it. Makes for a really hilarious option when you're dealing with those medium tanks. You can put a bunch of Zappers and a whole bunch of those Oh, you can see Professor Barr drawing all over the map here, commentating as is. These are all recorded on the twitch.tv Beyond All Reason official, by the way, in case you're wondering where you can go see the entire tournament. They have a entire video up and available in case you want to go sit through the entire one. I'm just going to be picking and pulling through these series for you fine folk to enjoy. If you've seen it already, no spoilers. If you haven't seen it already, then I sure hope you enjoy. You can hit that like button to show me that you're appreciating it. We do have a little bit of aggression over here. No more unbalanced commanders on this one. So these commanders, once again, are as squishy as they usually are, as fragile, as I like to say. However, early on in the game, of course, they're going to be quite good against this T1 spam. And indeed, that'll include these rovers over here that are going to be able to try and poke away at the defenses. Now, there are some ticks that have been pulled by Trash Panda to try and deal with the rover issue. Ticks very good at shutting down rovers, actually. They shouldn't counter them in theory, but in practice, they almost always end up winning in a 1-to-1 fight. Nicely done with the anti-air as well, shutting down a little bit of that scout from the red team. Let's see here. Yeah, doing a good job of preventing too much scouting. Don't really know what's going on in this top left-hand corner or the top right-hand corner, but got a good vision of the middle of the map here for the red team. The blue team, let's see what their scouting is like. Ooh, that's a hot, savory pile of nothing sitting around and waiting to be discovered. Ragnar now finally transporting the commander down to the low ground. I like this little low ground build that Ragnar's going for here. That's really cheeky. Going for the middle extractors and solar panel, the eco up here, and then just getting down to the low ground to contest this area a little more solidly. I like it. I think that's probably a pretty firm way of holding the center of the map right there. Aggression already across all fronts. Master Bell 2 trying to get a couple of rovers through. We also see a grunt pumped out and used to deal with those ticks. Obviously a very efficient solution for those ticks early on. Yeah, rovers, man. There are a virtually unlimited amount of things to complain about the rover, but suffice it to say, they just do not trade well against their counterparts. The reason I complain about them at all is just the fact that it has nothing really to do with their numbers, but just the fact of the way that they're designed. So you can see the gun for the rover is mounted on the back like a little scorpion tail. The Cortex equivalent is the Rascal, and let's see if we can find one anywhere around here. I don't see one. The Rascal is mounted with its gun in the front, and so what it means is that the rover actually can only fire, like if you think of it in terms of body lengths that it can fire further backwards than it can forwards. So you really always want to park the rover facing away from your enemy. It's a weird little thing of micro, but it really does make a little bit of a difference here. Was that the constructor going down here? That might have been the constructor plane for Nizag going down. Either way, a little incursion of fighter planes, probably looking for commanders being transported all around. Nicely done. Goopy moving his commander extremely far forward here. Stepping all the way forward here, maybe a little bit emboldened by that last that last match with the Unba commanders. Easy to play one of those matches and then get carried away with your commander and forget just how fragile they are. They can go down to just a couple of grunts or pawns or ticks or whatever. Very easy to forget that. Ironically, ticks are actually one of the few things that do still work against unbalanced commanders, because as we saw in that last game, one of the things that unbalanced commanders will do is flick from a unit here to 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 a unit here. They'll just keep switching back and forth, left, right, left, right, left, right, A down, A, B, start, square, or enter, whatever. Konami code aside. And that can often mean that they end up actually trading out pretty poorly. Well, not trading poorly, but they end up doing poorly against those lower tier units, the lowest tiers of units. You have to jump on top of them, though, which is why the tick is so powerful, of course, because of its speed. A couple of blitz tanks here, one of them extremely low, but the other two looking mildly healthy. Gonna start trying to retreat off this line here. Pro Randy looking to get the engagement right there, but wise enough to know that contributing all these forces would leave his fronts entirely open here. We do have another scout plane going out. That's really nice to see. Yeah, very nicely done here by Nizag. Getting another scout out on the blue player here. Trying desperately to see what's going on in the backline. Does actually scout out a little bit of the economy for the green player. It's not the end of the world to have that get scouted there, but it does mean that you might be a little bit more prone to bombing if you know that your opponent knows where your valuable wind turbines are all clustered up at. Could be worth moving that wind turbine farm somewhere else so that it doesn't get bombed blindly. Seagull, yeah, exposed out here. I was gonna say pretty far forward, and I think he realizes it. Went for the LLT here to try and defend himself, and I think that will drive back these grunts. Not sure if 9 grunts is enough. Maybe 15 is probably good, but 9 grunts probably not gonna be enough to blast down that commander, and especially not with LLT support here to keep that commander nice and healthy. Master Bell also pushed pretty far forward. These grunts looking for a little bit of engagement. Those medium tanks, though, doing a great job of contributing firepower. And I do believe Master Bell will walk out of this just barely with his life in his hands. 19% health on that commander. I think you should probably go back for a little bit of repairs. Go back to the facilities and get a little touch up. Commanders can they can fall out of high orbit, land on the ground perfectly fine, but God forbid that a flashlight is pointed at them for too long, or they will explode into cinders. Just one of those things that science cannot explain. Big old aggravator duel over here. Both teams fighting for their lives up here, but it's pretty much a stock standard match. I'm fairly surprised, actually. I feel like we haven't seen very many of those experimental units coming out to play. That being said, most of the experimental units are in the higher tiers, so you're not really going to see all too many of them. The Zapper, I think, is probably the lowest tier experimental unit that you're going to have access to. Ragnar going into T2 Armada vehicles here, going to be assisted by the team. Well, never mind. LSR walking away. You can see all of these players are sharing metal. All of the share sliders are put down extremely low right now. Very nicely done by all these teammates. Well, on the blue team anyway. The red team not so socialist, shall I say. Aggravator duels are oftentimes very tricky. They escalate into these mountainous piles of metal bodies, flinging rockets back and forth at each other. And oftentimes it can be a huge detriment when you win this battle and then suddenly you have all this T1 aggravator and no real way to use it effectively because your opponent has gone to T2 or because they get a really good connection against your units. You can have all the aggravators in the world, but if they have enough ticks, they're just going to overwhelm you anyways. So oftentimes this can actually end up spiraling out of control of the player that ends up winning this engagement. So it's important that you mix in a wide composition of units. You don't want to continually just continue pumping out aggravators, rocketeers, all that. You need to mix in a good batch of units here. We do see the console pumped out here. This is not the updated console or the modified, the tweak units console. It has the welder, it still has the hound, the good old hound. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of those hounds pumped out on the front lines here. They'd be very useful, especially over here against these aggravators for the blue team. And of course, vice versa. Bunch of shuriken handed over. Nice. Yep. So what Damus should do here is pull the units back and then bait the purple player into pushing forward here and then use the shurikens to jump on top of that whole army. That would be a very effective trade right there. Could do wonders. As far as the tech lead goes, certainly in the blue team's favor right now. T2 is up and available here for the red team over on this right-hand side. Not too much to speak of as far as experimental units go out of the T2 Cortex bot lab. And not much out of the Armada T2 vehicle lab either. Once we get into T3, though, you'll start to see some very, very lovely units being produced here, I'm sure. I am curious if we have the, what are they called? The test unit, or the candidate units, that's what they're calling them, the candidate units. They're units that they're considering adding to the official patch of the game. I think it could be good. Ooh, nice D-gun over here by Jazzcash. It was a little zoomed out, but I did see all of those symbols on the map going away right there. The purple player wiping out the entire tank force here for white mage. Very nicely done. Oh, a whole bunch of Mauser getting jumped on by grunts, actually. Nicely done. Yeah, shutting down some of that aggression. Really cool. It's a good little push right there by Goopy, but he has to be so careful not to over-contribute. Having a bit of an energy issue, perhaps? Not really. Just getting prepared for that T2 economy that is very energy consumptive. Not the end of the world. Here we go. We do see those hounds being produced eventually out of a console here for the red team. Going to be pumping out a whole bunch of those T2 artillery bots. And we do see as well one of those T2 constructors starting to get to work on a whole bunch of those T2 metal extractors. Nicely done. Is there any experimental things to be worried about here? No, there is some T2 experimental units to be concerned of, or some experimental structures rather to be concerned of. Let's see, there's a T2 constructor. So one of the things, of course, is the pawn launcher, which is just hilarious. Does exactly what you think it does. It fires pawns across the map, which it seems both teams have forgotten about here. You could build a pawn launcher right here. 4,500 metal. It's the cost of like 2 T2 labs almost. A little less than that, actually, I think. And yeah, fire pawns into your enemy's main base. Let's see how far that could fire. Yeah, I mean, so you can see the red outline there up towards the northern part of the screen, and you can see it would be able to fire well into the back lines of the green team. A whole bunch of pawns. It'd be well worth investing in. You can also build those T2 static defenses, which are impressive in their own way. There's the mini Ragnarok, which is pretty cute. Doesn't have a huge range, but it can fire quite quickly. It's sort of like the Gorgon, if you're familiar with that static defense on the oceans. There's also the Dragon's Fury, which is a continuous pop-up lightning turret, as well as the Epic Pulsar. And Cortex has similar static defenses. There's some sort of pop-up turret. I think it's like a missile battery turret, which is pretty interesting. And there's also a Epic Bulwark, which is just a massive version of the regular Bulwark. Fires a heat ray instead of a pulsar type blue laser beam. Tachyon beam, I think, is the technical one for that. There's light lasers, heavy lasers, tachyon lasers, and heat lasers. A lot of lasers to be aware of. Ooh, a couple of spiders produced here. Another one of those units that can come out of the console. Very good to see these in play. Quite powerful. Sound over here, luckily cued in such a way that it's going to avoid the rocketry coming out of that spider badonkadonk. There go the rockets flying right on past the hounds. This is exactly how you kite against the spiders. You just move them parallel, and the spiders can't hit them. There we go. Is there a little bit of tracking on there? It almost looked like there was the hint of tracking on that rocket. Interesting. Maybe not. Maybe my eyes do deceive me. Either way, White Mage being forced out of the center of the map right here. Loads of aggression over on this side of the map. Master Bell still keeping his commander on the front line, thinking this is still unbalanced commanders. Way too overexposed with that commander up front right now. I think it needs to start retreating backwards. Maybe even sacrifice for metal wouldn't be the end of the world here. We're stepping into that proper T2 late game, and that's really good to see. Oftentimes in the 4v4 and the 1v1 category, we don't really see people getting into that late game T3 era, but I feel like it's possible here. Spiderbots have crawled right on up and over this hill. They're going to start getting into the main base of the orange player and besieging everything that lays in ruin. Well, I guess besieging everything until it lays in ruin. There go the constructors. There goes the everything. A little bit of friendly fire there, but it won't matter. Plenty of rocket spiders here to shut down this main base. Don't think there's really anything that the red team has to deal with this. There's no constructors in the backline right now for the maroon player, oddly enough, White Mage. Is he just AFK or something? Where's the... Oh, I see. Commander was over here. And production is coming up and online over on this side. We need some construction turrets. Need more build power right now. Fiends sent in to deal with this, but those Shuriken making it a very effective trade for those spiders right now. As long as the fighters, or the spiders rather, the fighter spiders can fire on something that's moving, or that's not moving, that's static, they're gonna take a really, really nice trade. They just fire and forget, so it makes for a, it makes for a really nice engagement right there. And those Fiends are toast. Now the spiders are gonna continue marching across the map here. Yeah, they're not gonna stop yet. No reason for them to. Right-hand side, being pushed back by a whole bunch of Fiends that are coming out of the lab here for Goopy, but I think there's still just too much T2 available here for the blue team. These rocket spiders have been absolute heroes. Just saw in that game I just casted recently how powerful the spider composition could be. Would love to see a couple of Lepers included in the mix here. Not only because you could reclaim all of your enemy's metal, right? All this juicy scrap would just go right on back to your economy, but also for the fact that you could paralyze any units that your opponent does send. And yeah, you could let your rocket spiders have an even better engagement against all of those units. Damus now completely cut off here in a hound versus, hound battle. Pretty much going to go to the one who has more hounds, and that is Jazzcash. That being said, the retreat advantage is real. Is it big enough, though? Well, not anymore. Now it's in the favor of Jazzcash. Both the numbers and the retreating advantage in the favor of Jazzcash, and I do believe that's going to mean that the purple commander takes the win up in the, northern side of the red team's front line there. Shuriken have a very hard time against these spiders. Spiders are particularly resistant to EMP, meaning that they are difficult to stop using Shuriken. However, if you have enough of them, anything is possible. And indeed, Nizan going to be able to clean up the majority of these spiders after they, have already ravaged the red team here. Not sure if there's much point in continuing on, and it looks like the red team agrees as the blue team manages to put a point on the board. Very nicely done with that little push through the middle by Randy. Spiders sweeping away the economy for the red and managing to get them at least back into this game. let's head into our final match of the best of 3 series in this peculiar type of tournament. And that brings us to Charlie in the Hills, our final match for today, and this should be a spicy one. As you may have already noticed, this map is looking very odd. So I'll flash the particulars of what was rolled here up on the screen, but I'll explain it as well for my audio listeners at home. What was rolled was called Inverted and Let There Be Light. So Inverted, it takes all of the height map for the map and flips it upside down. I'm not sure exactly how it standardizes it, but you can basically see where usually there's a hill in the back over here of Charlie in the Hills. And again, like a mountain range over here with a little valley that you can walk through. All of it has been flipped upside down. These 2 big ponds that in the ground have now been turned into little hills that you can capture and control. Yeah, it's a fun way to mess up the map quite entirely here. Now, a fun little fact about Inverted. If, for instance, you ever want to throw a game on Inverted, what you can do is just hit Reclaim, and it will start setting the map back to its default terrain value. So there you go. The reason that breaks the game is because terrain changes like that can be extremely CPU intensive, and yeah, you're most likely gonna crash the server. So beware and be warned. Anyways, the other modifier, Let There Be Light, basically means that both of these teams are doing exactly, well, they see exactly what we see. In other words, there's no fog of war. Both teams well aware of what the other is doing. And so, for instance, both teams well aware of this scout that is headed across the map. Scout, big air quotes around that, right? Master Bell sending out this scout as if it wasn't already perfectly visible to the enemy team, and the entire enemy team's base wasn't perfectly visible to them. It's a funny kind of way to play, and frankly, I find it extremely difficult. The sensory overload from knowing exactly what your opponent is up to is extremely, extremely painful. Oftentimes what you do is you see units coming, and you're like, oh, okay, well, those are, because I see them, those must be friendly units, and then they shoot you and you die, and yeah, it's a painful way to play. I wouldn't be surprised if we see essentially just T1 spammed out to a massive degree here, because basically, with all of these, with the fog of war, it basically means that what it's going to come down to, rather than unit positioning, is just having more units, because the opponent is always going to be able to position their units properly. We shouldn't really see any successful aggression over here. It's impressive that we even sniped a single metal extractor, considering, you know, this is all visible here. Oh yeah, he went for a T2 lab, and obviously when there's no fog of war, your opponent knows that you went for a T2 lab and know that you're going to be weak in the area over here, so they start harassing you. Yep, nicely done right there. But yeah, what I was saying, it's gonna basically all come down to positioning here, because yeah, as you can see your opponent's entire field of view, you can start to plan your entire army accordingly, right? So just having enough units to deal with them is gonna probably be the best way to win here. Yeah, those Janices are coming up. And White Mage pulling back here, obviously aware of them. I say obviously like it's intuitive, but yeah, this is a very weird way to play. It doesn't seem disorienting, because as a spectator, we're pretty used to seeing the entire map, but when you're in the moment and you're actually playing in this sort of a way, yeah, it can be very frustrating. Especially when you're trying to do any cheeky shenanigans, right? Like going for bombing runs is virtually impossible. You try and fly some bombers around the map, but your opponent knows exactly where your bombers are. Try and sneak some spiders around too. Not gonna work either. I'm keeping a very high level perspective on this because, yeah, I wanna watch the unit movement rather than the individual battles, because I'm guessing they're gonna basically all be individually even. I will point out that there's a couple of cheeky fighters that were sent around the map here to try and shoot down Nizah's transport. Yeah, but obviously Nizah is aware of those fighters, and so not going to really be caught off guard by those fighters, or at least shouldn't be caught off guard by those fighters pushing across the map here, trying to shoot down his commander in a transport. He knows it's clear now and can move the commander out. It looks like he's not interested in that, but could if he so chooses to. What a weird battle. It's so difficult to adapt to this sort of a thing. It seems like just such a minor change, but it really changes the entire way that you have to approach the battles here. No longer does it come down to outmaneuvering your opponent and playing any sort of mind games. That's what I rely on a lot in my own gameplay, is trying to outmaneuver the enemy and take decent engagements, right? Try and make the shape of your engagement count for a whole lot. And this, it really just doesn't matter. You're just going to need new units. There we go, Jazz Cash recognizing an opportunity over here on this side of the map and exploiting it with a whole bunch of those grunts, pushing through and killing a metal extractor as well as a little portion of the army here for Damis. And yeah, that's quite nice. Resbot goes down right there as well. LSR moving through the middle of the map. Shurikens pulled all over to try and stun some of those tanks. Very nicely done. Goopy pretty far forward here, I gotta say. It's not like they don't know that your reinforcements are lacking behind. Obviously, it also means that any ranged units like the aggravators, the aggravators, always get those mixed up. The aggravators, hounds, Sheldon, any of those are going to have perfect vision, right? So they can fire away at their full length. No reason for them to be, or no reason for any sort of radar bots or anything like that. That is to say, however, that spy bots are still effective. So you can still send spy bots across and the opponent won't see them unless they have a unit within field of view of that spy bot. So that's quite nice. At least I believe that's true. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Might have to double check that one on the bar wiki, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that works. The cloaked units can still be built, but obviously they can see the cloaked unit being built in the factory here. So the red team has the announcement that the opponent is on T2, so no surprises there. They can see the T2 transition. They're paying for the opponent's T2 transition by, the blue team rather is paying for the T2 transition by giving up ground over here. However, those T2 units are going to start coming up and online here. And so yeah, you can see the Hound now able to fire at its full range despite not having essentially any vision tech over here at all. It changes the entire game. It really does. Get AA turret. Not a bad idea. Shuriken, very powerful. Well worth investing in some AA to try and counteract Shuriken whenever they try to come for your front line. Jazzcash trying to claim the mexes that he got out of that little push from the grunts earlier. Not a bad idea. Goopy on the retreat now. Hounds are now out. And more than happy to start firing on the commander from so far away. Oh, they're just even more lethal. This is how dangerous the Hounds can be if you have proper scouting. But in this match, you don't have to worry about it. You just have the proper scouting. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're just tremendously effective. What a weird matchup. Artillery units so powerful here. Mauser going to be king of the battlefield. Because, yeah, they can just rain away from so far back. We have a whole bunch of fighters coming up. Are we going to go into bombers, I wonder? No, looks like mostly just fighters here. There's also Shuriken, which is great. It is nice in many ways because you know what your opponent is going for as far as air control goes. There's no guessing. Ooh, do I have to prepare for a fighter wave? Do I have to prepare for a bomber wave? How many fighters do they have? How many bombers do we have? You just know. You can just see exactly the numbers that are necessary there. The T2 is really hitting hard, though, for the blue team. We're going to need a very prompt T2 transition here for the red team. Already a Hound was given out here to Goopy. We'll love to see this Hound moving on over to start producing a whole bunch of Hounds in the backline here for Goopy so that he can counteract the Hounds coming out of Randy. Randy going to be using those Hounds to blast away at all the T1 defenses. Oh, we need some static anti-air, though. There is a Thistle up in the backlines here, firing away, but just not quite enough. Yeah. Randy stepping forward and building anti-air wherever possible. One by one, those Shuriken are getting shot down, though. Damus's commander has fallen over on this side. Hounds are out on this side as well, though. These Hounds can technically shoot at the Shuriken. One of their, kind of side profiles, right? There's like a list of things that they are meant to do, and then there's a list of things that they can do technically. And yeah, shooting at Hounds is one of those things that sort of falls under the back burner category. Grunts have been well outpaced at this point. Rocketeers and Hounds going to be a beautiful composition for shutting down all of these units here, and we can see exactly what I was talking about earlier. It really just comes down to who has more of better units, and in this case, Goopy just doesn't have as much T2 as he needs to fight the encroaching army pushing in now. Look at that guy with his hands in the air. Whippy! See that again? Put your hands in the air again. They're so adorable. I want a screenshot of it. Gunslinger more interested in taking down the Mauser, which is probably fair. And down he will go. Womp. Right into the dirt. He was having a fun time pushing in here, and understandably so. Gunslinger also benefits from having all that vision, right? huge bomber wave at this point. But yeah, this is the problem, right? The enemy just can know how many fighters they have and how many fighters you have and whether they can win the air war and shoot down your bombers no matter where you try and send them in at. And indeed, I think that's going to be Goopy's commander going down right here, right in the middle of the base, taking out the red player, the red team leader anyways, from this match. Per Randy pushing in with a mighty T2 force right now. We've got those hounds streaming out. We've got spider bots coming up as well. Hounds likewise on the right-hand side of the map are sweeping across, and I think this is going to be a swift, surefire blue victory. So the red team decides to call GG, and that will be all she wrote here, with Ragna and the Blues taking victory in this best-of-3 tournament. Looks like we're down to just the last commander. I'm calling it a little bit early, but yeah, this match is well over. This match is good and over. In the meantime, as we watch the death of the final commanders here in 4K, I sure hope you'll reach down in the comment section and let me know if you enjoy this series, if you enjoyed this kind of thing, if you're excited to see more matches from this tournament. I feel like it's definitely well in line with my my content that I do and the streams that we do and all that sort of stuff, where we like to play around with some of the modifiers and have some really fun games up beyond all reason. So I figure if you're watching these videos and you enjoy the streams and you enjoy the content, then you probably are excited about this tournament. But as always, I love to hear from you guys down below. Hope you hit the like button down there as well. Take a second or two to caress the like button gently, and maybe even consider joining the Brightworks by hitting the subscribe button, as I am always down to make new friends and have them join up in the Brightworks. Other than that, though, I sure hope you enjoyed today's Best of 3 series, and I will see you in the very next Beyond All Reason video. Peace out, folks.